"Mom, we got married yesterday. Just send the beach house keys." Those words from my daughter made me smile. 3 days later, I left a gift at her door that made her new husband scream. Want to know what happened? Let me tell you this story. My name is Carol. I'm 65 years old. Until recently, I thought I knew my daughter Madison really well. We talked every single day. She would call me during lunch, and we'd chat about her job, TV shows, and her dating life. 2 years ago, Madison brought home a man named Trevor. I was happy for her at first. She seemed so excited. "Mum, he's different," she told me that first night. "He really understands me." I made my special lasagna for dinner. Trevor arrived wearing a nice suit and brought flowers. He was handsome and polite. He asked me questions about my nursing job and helped clean the dishes. Everything seemed perfect, but something felt wrong to me. "Your mother raised an amazing daughter," he said when leaving. "You must be very proud." I was proud. Madison had a good job in marketing. She owned her own apartment. She never needed help from anyone. She was strong and independent, just like I taught her to be. But something bothered me that night. Maybe it was how Trevor talked about Madison, like she was a prize. Or maybe it was because he mentioned my beach house 3 times during dinner. Owned a small beach house that had been in our family for 15 years. Madison and I spent every summer there together. Over the next few months, Trevor slowly took over Madison's life. He had opinions about her friends, her job, and even me. Madison stopped calling me every day. First it became once a week, then once a month, then almost never. "Trevor thinks I should focus more on our relationship," Madison explained. "He says successful couples put each other first." I told myself I was just being an overprotective mother. Madison was 28 years old. She could make her own choices. But then something terrible happened. I found out Madison was engaged through Facebook. I saw a picture of her hand wearing a big diamond ring. The caption said, "He asked." I said yes. 53 people had liked it. Friends were congratulating her in the comments. Nobody seemed to notice that her own mother didn't know about it. I sat there staring at my phone for 10 minutes. My coffee got cold. My daughter was getting married, and I learned about it from the internet. I called her right away. "Oh my goodness, Mom." "I'm so sorry," Madison said. She sounded excited. "It just happened last night. We were going to call you this morning. I promise." "Congratulations, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound happy. "Tell me everything." She talked for 20 minutes about the proposal, the ring, and how romantic it was. Trevor's parents were planning a party at their country club. They wanted a spring wedding. "When is the party?" I asked. "Next Saturday. It's going to be small, just close family and friends." "Should I drive down Friday night?" I asked on another pause. This one was longer. "Mom, about that," Madison said slowly. "Trevor's family has specific ideas about these events. His mother planned everything. It's really just for Trevor's side of the family." My stomach felt cold. "What do you mean, Madison?" "It means it's better if you don't come. Trevor thinks we should respect his family's way of doing things." Everything had become about what Trevor thinks. "I see," I said carefully. "And what do you think?" "I think Trevor knows his family better than I do," she said. "You understand, right? We'll do something special. Just the 3 of us soon." That was 6 months ago. We never did anything special together. Being left out, the wedding planning happened without me. Madison would mention little details. They found a place for the wedding. They picked flowers. But when I offered to help, she gave me unclear answers. 3 months ago, I asked about the date so I could take time off from my job at the library. "We're thinking early October," Madison said. "Probably the second weekend." "That sounds lovely," I said. "Are you thinking of having it at the beach house?" "Oh no, Mom. Trevor wants something more elegant than a backyard beach wedding. That hurt. Madison had always loved our beach house. As a little girl, she said she wanted to get married there someday, barefoot in the sand with pretty lights. But I wasn't invited to look at wedding places. I wasn't asked about the guest list. I wasn't included when Madison went shopping for her wedding dress. On Instagram, I saw pictures of her shopping with Trevor's mother instead. I was becoming like a stranger in my own daughter's life. 2 weeks ago, Madison called me on a Tuesday evening. "Mum, I need to ask you something, and I need you to stay calm about it. Nothing good ever starts that way." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Trevor has been reading about healthy marriages. He thinks it's important that we be independent as a couple from the very beginning." I felt that cold feeling again. "What kind of independence?" "Well, he says I've been relying on you too much emotionally. Like calling you when I'm stressed instead of talking to him. He thinks that might hurt our marriage." "Madison, talking to your mother when you're upset is normal," I said. "But is it?" She asked. "Trevor showed me some articles about women who put their mothers before their husbands. It destroys marriages. I don't want to be that kind of wife, Mom." I knew what this was. Trevor was separating Madison from the people who cared about her. And he was making her think it was for her own good. "What does this mean?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "It means we need some space. Less phone calls. Trevor and I need to build our own traditions. And Trevor thinks we should spend holidays with his family this year." The holidays. We had spent every Christmas together since Madison's father left when she was 8. It was our special tradition. "I see," I said. My voice sounded strange. "Anything else?" "Actually, yes. Trevor thinks the beach house situation is complicated." "What about the beach house?" "Well, I always thought I would inherit it someday. But Trevor says that puts pressure on our relationship. He feels like he can never truly relax there because it's yours, not ours. If something happened between us and you, we'd lose our vacation spot." "Are you asking me to give you the house?" I asked. "Not exactly. Trevor thinks we should find our own place. Somewhere that's truly ours. Our own place. A place without me." I ended the call by saying I would think about everything. But inside, I was already making a plan. I was going to find out exactly who Trevor really was. It took me 1 week to figure out Trevor's pattern. I searched the internet and called some of Madison's college friends. Madison wasn't Trevor's first girlfriend with money. There was a woman named Emma. Her family owned restaurants. Trevor isolated her from her family too. They were going to get married. But Emma's father discovered that Trevor owed people lots of money from gambling. Before Emma, there was Sarah. Her family had a trust fund with lots of money. Trevor tried to access it before her brothers stopped him. Trevor Morrison wasn't just controlling. He was a hunter who looked for smart, successful women with family money. Madison, with her good job and the beach house she would inherit, was his latest target. That's when I started planning my wedding gift. 3 days ago, on a Wednesday morning, Madison called me. I was working in my garden. "Hi, Mom." Her voice sounded flat and robotic. "Hello, sweetheart. How are you? I'm calling to tell you that Trevor and I got married yesterday. It was a small ceremony, just close family and friends." I stopped breathing. "Yesterday? But I thought you were having a wedding in October." "We decided to do something more private." Trevor felt like a big wedding was too much pressure. "We found a beautiful place and kept it simple." "Simple and secret." "Congratulations," I managed to say. "I'm sure it was beautiful." "It was perfect," she said, but her voice was still flat. Trevor's parents were there. His sister flew in. My friend Jessica was my bridesmaid. She was listing details like she was reading from a catalogue, not talking about the happiest day of her life. "That sounds lovely, Madison." I'm happy for you. Thanks. Oh, and Mum, Trevor and I were wondering if you could send us the keys to the beach house. We want to spend our honeymoon there since we didn't plan a trip. There it was. The real reason for the call. Not to share her joy with her mother. Not to include me in this important moment. But to ask for the keys to property they already thought should be theirs. The keys to the beach house, I repeated slowly. Right. Trevor is really excited to see it. I've told him so much about it. He's particularly interested in the improvements you've made and how much the property is worth now. Property value. How romantic. Madison, when you say you got married yesterday, do you mean you're legally married? Both. We got the license last week and had the ceremony yesterday. Why? Just checking. And you didn't think to invite your mother to your wedding? There was a pause. Mum, please don't be dramatic. It was Trevor's decision to keep it small. And honestly, after everything we talked about with boundaries, I thought you'd understand. I understand perfectly. And I did. I understood that my daughter had married a man who convinced her that leaving out her own mother was healthy. I understood that Trevor had succeeded in separating Madison from the one person who might have protected her. So you'll send the keys? We want to drive up this Friday. Of course, sweetheart. I'll make sure you get them. After I hung up, I sat in my garden for a long time. Trevor followed patterns. He separated women from their families, convinced them to give him access to their money, and then probably moved on when he got what he wanted. But Trevor made one big mistake. He thought I was just another helpless mother who would quietly accept being cut out of her daughter's life. He didn't know what happens when you back a woman into a corner and take away the person she loves most. I spent the rest of that day making phone calls and sending emails. By evening, I had everything I needed to give Trevor exactly what he deserved, not revenge. Justice. The wedding gift I planned would be more valuable than anything on a wedding registry. It would be the gift of truth. I've always believed that the best gifts keep on giving. So, when I drove to Madison and Trevor's apartment that Friday morning, I made sure my present would create lasting memories. The package was beautifully wrapped in silver paper with a white bow. Inside was a leather folder containing several items I had carefully put together over the past 3 days. Trevor was going to love learning about his new family. Connections. I left it outside their door with a note. Congratulations on your marriage. Every new husband should know about his wife's family history. With love, Carol. Then I went home and waited. The call came at 2:17 in the afternoon. Madison's number appeared, but Trevor's voice came through and he was screaming. What is wrong with you? You crazy old woman. How dare you send us this garbage? I set down my teacup gently. Hello, Trevor. I take it you opened your wedding gift. This isn't funny. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. I'm confused, dear. What exactly would you report? That your mother-in-law gave you a wedding gift containing public records and newspaper articles. In the background, I could hear Madison crying. Trevor, calm down. Let me talk to her. No. This woman is insane. She's trying to ruin our marriage before it even starts. I couldn't help but smile. Trevor, surely you're not upset about me sharing some interesting family history. I thought you'd appreciate knowing about the connections between our families. The truth was, I discovered something absolutely fascinating during my research. Trevor's grandfather, William Morrison, had been involved in a business deal with my late husband, Robert, back in 1987. A real estate deal that went very, very badly. The documents in the wedding gift told the complete story. How William Morrison and Robert were partners in a shopping center project. How Morrison stole money from their shared accounts. How Robert lost almost everything, including his first marriage, because of Morrison's theft. How Morrison ran away to Florida. with over $2 million. How Robert went bankrupt and faced lawsuits from investors, but that wasn't the most interesting part. The most interesting part was what I discovered in a newspaper article from 1993. William Morrison had died in a car accident. That before dying, he confessed to his grandson Trevor about the money he stole and hid in various bank accounts. Money that Trevor had been quietly using for years. Money that legally belonged to Robert's estate. And since Robert died 3 years ago, that money now belonged to his only heir, Madison. Trevor, I said calmly into the phone. I also included contact information for the law firm that handled Robert's estate. They're very interested in speaking with you about those offshore accounts your grandfather mentioned in his confession. Apparently, there's quite a bit of money that rightfully belongs to Madison. The screaming stopped suddenly. You're lying, he said, but his voice had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something that sounded like panic. I never lie, dear. I'm a retired nurse. We're trained to be very precise about facts. But don't take my word for it. I'm sure your grandfather's lawyer in Miami will remember you. Mr. Rodriguez has been very helpful in tracking down the paper trail. I heard Madison in the background asking what was happening, what money I was talking about. Oh, and Trevor, the beach house keys are in the folder too. Consider it my wedding gift to both of you. I'm sure you'll find it very relaxing to discuss your family's financial history while enjoying the ocean views. Then I hung up and poured myself another cup of tea. Next few hours were going to be very interesting. Madison calls back. Madison called me at 6:30 that evening. Her voice was rough from crying, and I could hear Trevor shouting in the background. Mom, what did you do? I was sitting on my porch watching the sunset. I gave you both a wedding gift, sweetheart. Did you read through everything? I read enough. Trevor says it's all lies. That you're trying to break us up. What do you think, Madison? There was a long pause. I think I need you to explain some things. Did Trevor's grandfather really steal money from Dad? $2.3 million according to the bank records. Your father spent years trying to get it back. But William Morrison disappeared. The stress helped cause your father to leave us when you were 8. He couldn't handle the financial problems or the legal battles. Another pause. And Trevor knew about this money. I could hear Trevor's voice getting closer. Clearly furious. The deathbed confession suggests he did. Yes. The private investigator I hired found records of Trevor accessing several of those accounts over the past 5 years. He's been living off money that legally belonged to your father's estate. That's impossible. Trevor has a consulting business. My heart broke a little for her. Madison, when's the last time you saw Trevor actually work? When's the last time he had a client meeting or business call? Silence. In the background. Trevor was demanding that Madison hang up the phone. The law firm wants to meet with you, sweetheart. As Robert's heir, you have a legal claim to that money plus interest. They think it's worth almost $4 million now. $4 million? Madison's voice was barely a whisper. Trevor married you 3 days after I hired the private investigator. The timing seems rather interesting, don't you think? Now I could hear Trevor clearly. He was telling Madison that I was lying, that I was jealous of their happiness, that I was trying to destroy their marriage because I couldn't stand to see her happy. Madison, I said gently, ask yourself this. If none of this is true, why is Trevor so upset? If his grandfather was innocent, wouldn't he want to clear his family's name? The line went quiet except for the sound of Madison breathing. There's something else, I continued. The private investigator also found records of 2 previous engagements. Emma Chun in 2019 and Sarah Walsh in 2021. Both engagements ended when their families discovered Trevor's financial lies. Both women had family money. Both were separated from their support systems before the truth came out. "Stop," Madison whispered. "I have their contact information if you'd like to speak with them." I said stop. The line went dead. The local news picked up the story by Monday morning. "Local man arrested in multi-state financial fraud scheme" was the headline. They didn't mention Madison by name, but Trevor's picture was prominently displayed. He looked exactly like what he was, a common criminal whose charm had finally run out. Madison came over for lunch that day, bringing Chinese takeout and looking lighter than she had in months. "Agent Liu called this morning," she said. "Trevor's been formally charged with conspiracy, money laundering, and fraud across multiple states. His bail was set at $500,000. $500,000? I nearly choked on my tea. Apparently he's considered a flight risk since he has access to offshore accounts and a history of disappearing when confronted. His parents can't afford the bail, and his accounts have been frozen." We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest," Madison said. "What is it?" The trial began 6 weeks later. Patricia Winters had been right about the money. Madison was entitled to nearly $4 million in recovered money, plus interest and damages. But more importantly, the prosecution had built a strong case against Trevor that exposed his entire operation. Emma Chun flew in from Seattle to testify. Sarah Walsh drove up from New York. Together with Madison, they showed how Trevor was a systematic predator who had perfected his technique over years. I sat in the courtroom every day, watching my daughter tell her story with dignity and strength. She spoke calmly and clearly, never breaking down. Trevor's lawyer tried to show him as a confused young man who made poor choices, but wasn't a criminal mastermind. That strategy fell apart when Agent Liu presented evidence of Trevor's detailed research into each victim, including surveillance photos of Madison taken weeks before their accidental meeting. The most devastating testimony came from Marcus Webb, the man who had been working with Trevor on the offshore accounts. Webb had been arrested as an accomplice and agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. "Mr. Morrison contacted me in 2018. Webb testified, asking for help accessing accounts his grandfather established before his death. When I explained the legal problems, he told me he was working on a long-term plan to make his access legal." "What did he mean by long-term plan?" the prosecutor asked. "He said he was going to marry someone with a legal claim to the money. He showed me newspaper articles about Robert Thompson's financial losses and explained that Thompson's heir would be the rightful owner of the stolen money. He said once he gained access to that person's finances through marriage, he could claim the offshore money as shared property." Madison turned pale at this testimony. "Did Mr. Morrison discuss specific targets for this plan?" "Yes. He had identified 3 potential candidates based on their family financial histories and personal situations. He showed me social media profiles and explained why each woman would be easy to manipulate." "Was one of those women Madison Thompson?" "Yes. He said she was the ideal target because she was successful but emotionally alone after her father's abandonment, close to her mother who owned valuable property, and inexperienced with relationships due to limited dating history." I watched Madison's face as she heard herself described as a target. The pain in her eyes was terrible, but beneath it I saw something else. Pure, focused rage. The jury took less than 3 hours to decide. "Guilty on all counts." The words echoed through the courtroom as Trevor Morrison's carefully built world collapsed around him. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay back over $8 million to all victims. Since Trevor had already spent most of the money he stole, this meant he would come out of prison as broke as his victims had been when he finished with Madison gave a victim impact statement during sentencing that left half the courtroom in tears. Trevor Morrison didn't just steal money from me, she said, looking directly at him. He stole 2 years of my life, my relationship with my mother, my ability to trust my own judgment, my faith in love itself. He convinced me that the people who truly cared about me were the enemy, while he was planning to rob me blind. She paused, then continued with steel in her voice. That here's what Trevor didn't understand about the women he targeted. We're not weak. We're not victims waiting to happen. We're strong, intelligent women who were temporarily deceived by an expert liar. And when we discovered the truth, we didn't just walk away. We fought back together. Trevor kept his eyes down during Madison's statement, but I saw his shoulders shake. I hope you spend every day of your sentence thinking about the lives you destroyed and the women who were strong enough to rebuild them. After the sentencing, we gathered outside the courthouse. Madison, Emma, Sarah, Agent Lou, and me. The media wanted interviews, but we politely said no. This wasn't about publicity or revenge. It was about justice. Emma hugged Madison goodbye. Thank you for being brave enough to wear that wire. Without your recording, we might never have gotten a conviction. Sarah squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on your daughter. If you hadn't investigated Trevor's background, he'd still be out there finding new victims. As the crowd left, Madison and I walked to our cars in comfortable silence. Finally, she turned to me. Mom, I have something to ask you. What is it, sweetheart? She smiled that beautiful smile I'd missed for 2 years. Would you help me plan a real wedding? Someday, when I find someone who actually deserves me. Someone who loves you too. Because anyone who can't appreciate my mother isn't worthy of me. I felt tears in my eyes. I would be honored. And Mom, about the beach house. I know Trevor made me say those awful things about it not being fancy enough. The truth is, I've always dreamed of getting married there. Barefoot in the sand with pretty lights strung between the dunes. Just like I used to plan when I was little. It would be perfect, I said, hugging her tight. As we drove away from the courthouse, I thought about the woman I'd raised. Madison had been temporarily lost, deceived by a master manipulator. That in the end, the strength I'd seen in her as a child had returned. She'd found her way back to herself and back to me. Trevor Morrison made one fatal error. He thought separating Madison from her family would make her weak and dependent. Instead, it only made our reunion stronger and our combined determination more powerful than he could have imagined. The hunter had become the hunted, and justice had been served by the very women he'd tried to destroy. Some wedding gifts really do keep on giving. And the gift of truth, once unwrapped, can never be taken back. How long did you know? How long did you know about Trevor's pattern? About what he was really after? I considered lying or softening the truth. But Madison deserved honesty. I suspected something was wrong from the beginning, but I didn't have proof until about 3 months ago. That's when I hired the investigator. 3 months ago? Madison nodded slowly. Right around the time I told you about the boundaries conversation. Yes. And you didn't try to warn me directly because you knew I wouldn't believe you. Would you have? I asked. She shook her head. No. I would have thought you were jealous or trying to interfere. Trevor had me so convinced that you were the problem. She paused. How did you know to look into his grandfather's background? I recognized the name Morrison from your father's old papers. When I realized the connection, I knew there had to be more to the story. Madison was quiet for a long time. I was so mean to you, Mom. I said terrible things. I left you out of my own wedding because he convinced me it was healthy. Madison, no, let me finish. I chose a man I'd known for 2 years over the mother who gave up everything to raise me alone. I believed his version of what family should look like instead of trusting my own experience. I'm so ashamed. I reached across the table and took her hand. You were manipulated by an expert predator. That's not your fault. But I should have seen through him. I'm smart, educated, successful. How did I fall for it? Because he targeted those exact qualities. He found a strong, independent woman and convinced her that her strength was actually weakness. That's what predators do, sweetheart. They don't target weak people. They target people who have something they want. Madison squeezed my hand. How do I make this right between us? You already have. You're here. You're safe. You're free. That's all I ever wanted. I set the phone down and looked out at the darkening sky. Tomorrow, Madison would have to decide what to believe. Tomorrow, she would have to choose between the man who separated her from everyone who loved her and the truth that could set her free. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, Trevor Morrison was going to sleep knowing that his carefully built house of lies was falling apart. And I was going to sleep better than I had in months, knowing that my daughter finally had all the information she needed to make the right choice. The gift that keeps on giving. Indeed, Madison didn't call back that night or the next day, but on Sunday morning, I found her sitting on my front porch steps. She was still wearing the same clothes from Friday. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was messy. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Tell me everything, she said without even saying hello. I made coffee, and we sat at my kitchen table. The same table where she did homework as a child. Where we planned her college applications. Where we had shared 1,000 conversations. Now we were going to talk about how the man she married was a fraud. Trevor left yesterday, she said, staring into her coffee cup. He packed 2 suitcases and said he needed time to think. He told me you were poisoning our marriage with lies. He said if I believed you over him, then maybe we weren't meant to be together. Classic manipulation. Make the victim feel responsible for the relationship's problems. Where did he go? I don't know. He turned off his phone. But Mom... She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I found something. Madison pulled out a folder from her purse. After Trevor left, I went through his things. His laptop, his desk, everything. I found these. She spread printed emails across my kitchen table. They were messages between Trevor and someone named Marcus Webb, discussing the Morrison inheritance and accessing offshore accounts. The dates went back 2 years, long before Trevor had even met Madison. There's more, Madison said, her voice getting stronger. I called Emma Chen yesterday. The woman from your investigator's report. What did she tell you? Everything. How Trevor separated her from her family. Convinced her to put him on her bank accounts. Even had her write a will leaving everything to him. Her father hired a detective and discovered Trevor's pattern. When they confronted him, he disappeared overnight. Madison pulled out her phone and showed me text messages. Emma put me in touch with Sarah Walsh too. Same story, Mom. Exact same pattern. He finds successful women with family money, charms them, separates them from their families, and then gains access to their money. I reached across and squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Don't apologize. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I chose to believe a man I'd known for 2 years over the mother who raised me. She wiped her eyes. Emma told me something else. She said Trevor actually researched us before he accidentally met us. He knew about the beach house. Knew about Dad's financial troubles. Knew you were a widow. The coffee shop meeting. Madison had always thought it was fate that she literally bumped into Trevor, spilling coffee on his expensive shirt. That's how their first conversation started. Turns out fate had nothing to do with it. What are you going to do? I asked. Madison looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen since she was 12 years old and decided to stand up to a bully at school. Determined, fierce, ready for a fight. "I'm going to destroy him," she said simply. "But I'm going to need your help." For the first time in 2 years, my daughter was asking for my help instead of pushing me away. "Tell me what you need." The plan we developed was beautifully simple. Trevor would come back eventually. Men like him always do when they think the crisis has passed. He'd apologize, promise to change, maybe even claim he was confused by the accusations. He'd try to smooth things over and get back to his plan of accessing Madison's money. But when he came back, we'd be ready for him. Madison called the law firm that Monday and met with Robert's estate attorney, Patricia Winters. The news was even better than I'd hoped. Not only did Madison have a legal claim to the money Trevor's grandfather stole, but because Trevor had been accessing those accounts while knowing they contained stolen money, he could be charged with crimes related to conspiracy and money laundering. "The time limit on the original theft has expired," Patricia explained. "But your husband's recent access to those accounts resets the legal clock. He's essentially been receiving stolen property for years." Patricia also connected Madison with a federal investigator who specialized in financial fraud. Agent Jennifer Liu had been tracking Trevor's pattern for months, building a case based on complaints from Emma and Sarah's families. "We've been waiting for the right opportunity to move forward," Agent Liu told us. "Your situation provides the final pieces we need. If you're willing to help, we can set up a controlled operation." Madison agreed immediately. She wanted Trevor held responsible, not just for what he did to her, but for what he did to Emma and Sarah, and who knows how many other women. Wednesday afternoon, Trevor texted Madison. "Can we talk? I miss you. I'm ready to come home." Madison showed me the message. Should I respond? "Tell him you miss him too and that you're sorry for doubting him. Tell him you realize I was just jealous and trying to cause trouble." She typed the message, her jaw clenched with anger, but her words perfectly designed to appeal to Trevor's ego. He responded within minutes, saying he'd be home by Friday evening and that they could start fresh. Agent Liu briefed us Thursday morning. "The apartment will be monitored. Madison, you'll be wearing a wire and we'll have agents nearby. All you need to do is get him to admit he knew about the stolen money and that he married you to gain access to your inheritance." "What if he doesn't confess?" Madison asked. "Then we proceed with the financial evidence we already have. But a recorded confession would strengthen the case significantly and help us pursue charges related to his other victims." The confession Friday evening came faster than I expected. I sat in my living room, supposedly reading a book, but actually staring at my phone, waiting for updates. Agent Liu had given me a number to call if Madison needed help. The text messages came, 7:43 p.m. "He's here." 8:15 p.m. "He brought flowers and wine." Playing the perfect apologetic husband. 8:52 p.m. "He's talking about planning a real honeymoon." Asking about accessing my savings account for deposits. 9:31 p.m. Got him to admit he knew about the offshore accounts. FBI moving in now. I set down my phone and poured myself a glass of wine. Trevor Morrison's career as a predator was officially over.